seen so many people struggle with these things. Some of you may not know that my mother, Marjorie Crawford, got me playing piano in the 2nd grade. And I played piano ever since. So it's dedicated to her. She's gone now, out in the ether, very much so. Very grateful for that. Because I know it wasn't my idea, to take piano lessons. And this is just like an improvisation. I just make it up.
Thank you so much, Steve. That is always very, very beautiful. Contemplative music, I call it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Blessings to your mother.
Yes, Marjorie Crawford.
Marjorie Crawford. And, you know, this is always a tender moment in our service every week. This is a tender moment for me every week when I think about our ancestors. All of our relations, as the Native Americans say. And what comes to my mind are every Sunday, different people come to my mind from my own ancestry. This morning, as you were playing, I was thinking of my two grandfathers whom I never met. My mother's father was Greek, and my father's father, who was Ukrainian, both of whom died when my parents were very young. And even though I never met them, I feel like I know them and that they are still within me. My father had one memento from his father. His father was a barber. And he had the shears that belonged to his father and kept them in his room all of his life. And I remember when he died, they went to my brother. I have one brother. And I don't know, there's something very tender about that for me. And anyway, I think that it's important that we reconnect as often as we feel we can with our lineage, with our ancestors, but then you can go beyond that and realize that there's nobody who's not related to everybody else in the world, on the planet, and that we're all still living. They're all still living within us. Because the planet wouldn't be able to go on if there weren't a continuum of life. And when there isn't a continuum of life anymore, the planet will go on, but maybe the human species might not. But nevertheless, even the dinosaurs live in us in a lot of ways. So it's just kind of an awesome concept to open your mind to. Or for me, it always starts, though, with a tender memory of somebody in my lineage that is coming to mind for us at this moment. So maybe we can all take a moment and see who comes to our mind when we think about our ancestry and all of our relations here on earth. And that goes along with honoring the first people who have lived in our land and lived here long before we did, and who still live here. And Heidi, one of our members, Heidi, had a 60th birthday celebration last night downstairs in our sanctuary, and she was talking about the wood that was built this church, the original wood, some of it. Now I'm pointing to the floor. The floor is not original wood, but some of the wood in the structure is original, and it came from the longhouse of the people who lived here before we took their land and decided to build upon it. And this is, as many of you know, most of you know, this is a historic building, and the oldest wood frame church in King County that has been continuously used as a church. And we try to honor this space and this building and the stewardship of this building, and honor the people who came before us and people who are still with us. I mean, the Native American community is very much a part of our community even today, and we'll be hearing more about that as the year goes on. Laurel Boucher is going to be our guest speaker in a couple of months, and you'll be very interested to hear her story of where she wants to talk about that day. And so we honor our first people. We thank them for being here and stewarding this land before us, for helping us steward it now. They're guiding us in many ways for saving the salmon and saving the other aspects of our land, which is under threat, always a problem. And we honor their presence in our lives. And I want to read one more thing about ancestors. I found this last night. I thought it was, it's by Paul Tsongas. He says, "We are a continuum. Just as we reach back to our ancestors for our fundamental values, so we, as guardians of that legacy, must reach ahead to our children and their children. And we do so with a sense of sacredness in that reaching." So that helps us connect the past with the present, with the future, and realize that it's all a continuum, and that, according to Thich Nhat Hanh, nobody ever really dies. We all just continue in the continuum, one way or another. And then another one of our procedures here at the beginning of every service, one of our rituals is to honor the divine feminine. And I have a quote here from Marianne Williamson, which really struck me this week as I was thinking about, I don't know what I think about all the time. Here we go. You don't want to know. You don't want to get inside of my mind. That might be dangerous. Okay, but this is what was in my mind when I got this quote up. Love is what we are born with. Fear is what we learn. The spiritual journey is the unlearning of fear and prejudices and the acceptance of love back in our hearts. Love is the essential reality and our purpose on earth. To be consciously aware of it, to experience love in ourselves and others, is the meaning of life. Meaning does not lie in things. Meaning lies within us. And that's Marianne Williamson. So, with all that wonderful wisdom in our hearts and brains, we will do some of our other routines that we have, because we have people online today, and we want to greet them and thank them for being here and welcome them into our community from near and far. And at this time, anyone who feels so moved to share their wealth with us, I will pass the plate here. I know that online folks have the opportunity to go to the website, interfaithcommunitysanctuary.org, and hit the donate button and do that through donations. They can also, many people mail checks or have their bank mail a monthly donation. We have many people who are very loyal contributors to our work here, and that helps us keep the lights on and the heat on when the mornings start to get cold again, and all the good stuff that goes on here does need monetary support. So we thank you for everyone who's able and willing to share of their own, out of their own hearts. And then we have upcoming gatherings that we'd like to talk about here at the beginning, and that has to do with all the different activities that happen throughout the week. Of course, we have a Sunday service every Sunday at 10 a.m. We've been very good about not ever relenting in offering that service, and we welcome everybody who can show up in person. But as you all know, it's also online and it's being recorded. So if you have another commitment on a Sunday morning at this time, you can always tune into the recording later and find it and listen to it at that point. We're very grateful for the folks like Chris and Bryce and people Rich, who keep our recordings going every Sunday. We do appreciate that deeply. It helps us when we want to go back and hear something that we might have missed. And we also have events throughout the week, some of which are on Zoom, where you can participate from a distance, some of which are in person, and some of which are both. So you have to check the website or the announcements that most of us get, called Upcoming Gatherings. Every Monday we get a little email about that, and you can check which ones are on Zoom that week, which ones, there's a schedule, but it's a little complicated to remember for a person like me and my elderly agedness. But I do know that just pretty much every day of the week there will be classes. There's meditation group on Thursday evening. There's the Sasiwa Circle, the medicine circle that our Native American women hold. That happens once a week. Again, that's an on again, off again, Zoom, in person, varies. We have a Course in Miracles that meets every week. We have people who study the Masnawi and other sacred texts. We have some gatherings that are once a month. And so I encourage you to check them out and see what might speak to you in terms of what do you need in this moment, what would nourish your soul, and how might you find community. A Course in Miracles meets. There are lots of ways to find community and people you can talk to, relate to, and be inspired by. And they're right here in this community, but they're not all here on Sunday morning, because some people have other things to do on Sunday morning. So think about that and see what might reach you or touch you. We have an event, we have a couple of events off campus happening that I want to talk about. One is we have a luncheon with people from St. Joseph's Parish in Seattle, and a time to converse and talk and get to know each other. And that is on September, help me out, Jamal, is it the 23rd? I think it's the 23rd. Let me just check my calendar because I don't have the flyer yet. No, it's the 27th, September 27th.
Yes, I really encourage all of you to come. This was a program created by Rice University in Houston. How do we overcome all these differences in religion, culture, race? And one way is to really listen to one another. It was called initially Dinner with Others, and today's this one is called Sacred Conversations, I think. Yeah, and it's in the afternoon.
And we're holding it as a lunch rather than a dinner, just to see if we can, gather people who might be more available on a Saturday afternoon. And then the Northwest Interfaith, which is another group we work with, they're gathering people who might be interested in a Habitat for Humanity interfaith build, which is also happening coming up. Now, I tried to print the flyer, but it wouldn't print for some reason. I don't know. You know how technology is, it gets out of whack sometimes. But we'll have a flyer for that tomorrow, and they're starting to organize around that, but it's not happening in the next couple of weeks. So I'll get you the information on that next week. It's Jamal and I did this last year with the Interfaith. It's a wonderful chance to really work on a project together in this area, in this community, Seattle area, and we help to build a home for people who will be getting that home at a very low interest rate and very low down payment. And they also put their work into it. Most of you have heard of Habitat for Humanity. So this is an interfaith build that we'll be able to be promoting and encouraging people to register for. So we'll talk to you. I'll give you the flyer by next week, hopefully. I think that does it for me. Thank you. Any other announcements? Or yeah.
Yeah, this coming Saturday we will have a wild church, which is in Carkeek, and that will that'll happen this coming Saturday. And then when we get back from a trip in the fall, I hope to have wild church more often, and you can read about that on the website. Thanks.
Oh, and I want to mention, too, that our guest speaker next Sunday is the first Sunday of September, and our guest speaker is a new friend, someone I don't think most of us have met him before. He's coming to us from Bainbridge Island, and he wrote a book called Sanctuary. His name is Terry Hershey. He lives on Bainbridge Island, I believe. And he will be talking to us a little bit about his take on the theme of sanctuary, which is our annual discernment for this year. As you know, the inviting everyone to create sanctuary in community. So Terry Hershey will be with us next Sunday. We also have a guiding council meeting. Our monthly guiding council meeting is next Sunday. And then we'll move on from there with our beautiful services. And now I get to introduce today's speaker, Steve Crawford, who I know most, if not all of you, all of you sitting here know Steve. He's been such a wonderful, dedicated, and faithful member of our community for as long as I have been, so probably longer, over 20 years. And he's been our guiding council president many times. He's worked on our building committee and helped us paint. He's helped paint this sanctuary, helped paint the outside of the building, the inside of the building, probably up in the attic. I don't know. He's helped everywhere.
Not in the attic yet.
Not yet.
That's not a place you want to go to.
Yeah, right. I think not. But you've helped clean out the attic, I'm sure of that.
That is true.
Yeah, well, that's even better. Anyway, he has also, as you can hear, has offered his wonderful original music for many years to our community and inspired us with that. And he's a reverend. He's a pastor himself and has filled with what I consider spiritual wisdom that I was very pleased and happy when he agreed to offer to us today his service based on the theme, which is sanctuary in nature. Well, the theme...
It's kind of a triune thing. It's humanity, sanctuary, and nature.
Okay, humanity...
How these things relate.
And the interrelate, and that's Steve for you. He'll interrelate everything. So I'll be quiet and let him take it over.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been 20 years since this happened, so. Well, welcome. Thank you for coming. And before I actually start, I have some brief remarks that I'm going to go over, and then we're going to have some group discussion, small group. But as many of you know, I have a little bit of an impish streak in me. And while I was laying in bed, I realized I wanted to ask one particular person here a question, put them on the spot, but only because I know she can handle it. Because when I was looking to make some notes, I was looking for a paper folder, to write in. I couldn't find one, so I was rummaging around in my roll-top desk, and I pulled out this folder, and I didn't recognize it. And when I opened it up, I see that I had used it for the first service I ever did here at the sanctuary. And this was many, many years ago. And I had this idea that I know somebody here today was at that service, and I was going to ask her, Sally Jo, and no pressure, if you remember, this tickled me, if you would remember what the topic was of my first service all those years ago. Do you remember? Let's hear it.
Well,
What was the topic of my first service, something like 20 years ago?
Now, I could be wrong.
That's okay. I'm
I've
often
already-
wrong.
I've already confessed about my memory. But what I most strongly remember talking about with Steve and hearing from Steve when I first met him was how his general approach to life is that we are all evolved from one seed and that we are all interrelated. In fact, I was thinking about it when I was talking about ancestors this morning, like what Steve always says. We're all related from one seed. We're all brothers and sisters, and how we are also one seed with all of nature. And don't think of yourself as separate from anyone else or anything else. End of story. And that kind of changed my thinking. Now that could be wrong, but that's what I remember, Steve.
Well, it is a beautiful thought, but it is wrong. The topic was why we don't have worldwide peace. And I remember you went to your father and you told him, oh, we've solved the problem of worldwide peace. Well, that didn't happen. The reach of my sermon did not ripple out and cause worldwide peace to break out. There's little pockets around, like we have a little pocket here right now of worldwide peace in the local. Okay, so welcome, and what do I see when I look out here? Well, I see human beings, but I see more than that. I see actual miracles. Now, what are these miracles? Each and every one of you and myself were born. We were given birth. And what comes with this birth? Well, it's opportunity. It's agency. We get a chance to exist in this incredible universe, and opportunity is always there. Sometimes there are particular opportunities, and you can decide to go through the door or not. It's up to you. Everybody gets to decide. But then, even as that particular door closes, all the time there's opportunity. That's the blessing we get. We get to make a difference in this world. We don't know how far the difference is going to ripple out. You never know. I've said innocuous things to people. And later on, years later, they said, oh, you so affected me by saying this. I had no idea. So you just never know. So you have to watch what you say, really, because you could put out a bad ripple, and we wouldn't want that. I'm going to be speaking about nature, and these are my views. They're not, and I wrote down some dates because I want to talk about the depth of nature. Because nature to me is the way that the universe plays out. It uses rules or guidelines. We study these with physics, with our spiritual inquiries, but there are ways that the universe moves, and I call that nature. So when we talk about nature, it's very deep, it's long, it's old, and it is incredibly diverse. So I just wanted to go over some numbers first. Now, just as a reminder, what's a billion years? I mean, we don't know really what that means. But a billion years, just 1 billion years, is 1,000 million year periods. Imagine that. I mean, that helps you understand it. And some of the numbers are multiple billions here that I'm talking about. So we have multiple periods of thousands of year periods. So way out there. So the best that we can figure, the universe started about 13.75 billion years ago. That was sort of as far back as we can see. Perhaps it was in one form or another before, but as far as we can use with science, that's the date that we use. And our solar system, including our sun and the planet Earth, was started about 4.5 billion years ago. And life started on Earth, as far as we can tell. All these are kind of fudge numbers, billion years. Kind of funny. Life started around 4 billion years ago, all right? And Luca, our last universal common ancestor, which gave rise to bacteria and archaea, which was basically the most advanced life that was alive at that time, started at about 3.8 billion years ago. So life has been going on this planet a really long time. And there have been more species and more individuals far transcending anything that is happening here right now. Species come and go. That's one thing about nature. Nature doesn't respect the individual or the species because we've seen it. There's been so many species that have flourished and then gone for whatever reason. There's been catastrophic events that have happened where the environment changed, so much so that, things would die out. But life never was totally destroyed in any of these. Life always found a way until we get to the point where here we are, pretty cool. Now, our ancestors, the hominids, which came before us, started approximately 16 to 20 million years ago. And there were a lot of hominid species. The denizens, the habilis, Neanderthal. Neanderthal is more, more recent. And then Homo sapiens, we came on the scene only 300,000 years ago. So we've been around for like a blip. I mean, if you had a cosmic clock, we wouldn't even show up. You'd need a microscope to see how long we've been around. But here we are. And as far as we can tell, we're the species that has grown a brain big enough and had opposable thumbs to really play around with the environment. I mean, we can really move things around, and we have. And it's been good and it's been bad, both. So we get both. And what I wanted to say about nature is we are the children of nature. We are a part of nature. We're not outside of nature. We are nature. Nature is our mother. And you could say the universe created nature and nature created us. And everything that we encounter here is nature. And I forgot, I wanted to pass this stone around and just feel it. It's pretty heavy. It has some dense minerals in it. And just take a look at it. You don't have to take a look at it that long, but I mean, and then just pass it around, because I'm going to get back to that. Well, I'll just pivot to this. So this stone, I took this stone from the riverbank of the Deschutes River in Olympia. And I got it because I was taking a video of the river, and my sister saw all the rocks, because it's like a gravel bed of a river. And she said, oh, I want one of those rocks. So that's the rock I picked up. So Lori, if you're watching this now, there's your rock again. I made a little video of it because I told her I was going to get it. And the video was, I was looking at, just looking at the river, and then the rock comes across the screen, so she knew that I had it for her. So our species, we make some discriminations about things in nature. We put them in groups. So there are things that are conscious, that are alive, and then we have things like this stone. Now, if you ask most people, is that stone alive? Well, they would say no, right? But what's interesting is that we have learned through the use of these big particle accelerators, where we smash atoms together to try to figure out what's inside of this stuff. We can't do it ourselves. We have to have these huge machines do it. And what's inside of them are these subatomic particles. And they're not particles like a grain of sand. They're discrete energy bundles, or there's no good word to describe it, really. And they're incredibly small. And they're vibrating. They're always moving. They're vibrating. And there's a whole host of these particles. But the particles that make up this stone are the same particles that make up our body. There's no difference. They're just configured differently. They come together and they join and they get complicated, and here we are. But this stone, you could see the porosity on it, and it's way older than we are. I mean, it's been in that riverbank a long time. But it's being worn down. I mean, nature is dissolving it. And eventually these particles will be totally freed from their current configuration. And they'll go into the water or the riverbank there. And then maybe they'll be taken up in the roots of a plant. And then they'll become part of a conscious being. Because all life is conscious in some way. I mean, there's some scientists who actually question, well, is a leaf conscious? To me, this is insanity. Of course it's conscious. Because if you're going to be alive, well, what do you have to do to be alive? You have to take in energy in one form or another, and then you excrete energy. All plants do this. All bacteria do it. Now, there's some forms of energy like viruses. Well, are they alive or not? Well, I don't know. But they use our bodies to make things. They replicate. But they're not really eating per se. Not that I'm aware of. So life and what we casually think of as non-life, it's only a matter of the way the particles are configured. And somehow life, that's a puzzle. I mean, we don't know exactly how it jumps from here to creating life where it's got to be doing the things that are necessary in order to live. But that happens. Now, I was just reading yesterday a study where they've created some conditions that were like the early days on the planet. And they had introduced some chemicals in the water that would have been found in that time, and some random protein molecules, which tend to come together and then dissipate on their own randomly. And they found that RNA was formed. And RNA is the transcription ability for DNA to make things. So, there's something going on there. But it is energy. It's all energy, and we are energy. It's just dancing energy. And that connects everything. It connects us to the universe. I mean, the particles that are out there in the universe are the same particles that are here. So it's this dance of particles. And because, it's my belief, because we are the children of nature, Everything that we make, whether we like it or not, is nature. Science is nature, because we thought up science. If a bird makes a nest, and you say, is that part of nature? People say, well, of course it is. Well, we're just a variation of life, like a bird, and we're making things. We made this sanctuary here, the people made it. We used to have trees out here, and now we have this building going up. Now, I preferred the trees, but both the trees and that building are nature, because we're doing it. And that's on us. You know, we have the responsibility for what we do. We put out all these greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, and the temperature's going up. That's on us. We could cause one of these environmental shifts where, and we're already having quite a few species go extinct. It's at a higher rate than it normally has been lately, so that's not good. The only thing that really gives me hope on that is that clean energy is so much cheaper than anything else. Almost all the new energy manufacturing is in solar and wind and some hydropower. So coal and gas, they're only going to lose because they cost more. And we know one thing about humans: we want to spend less, if we can. So we're going to get to green energy, but it's happening faster than what people ever thought it was going to happen. So that's good. But there's a certain amount of heat built into this cake that we've made, and we're going to feel the results of it. It's already happening. We're losing glaciers, insects. Everyone's being affected by it. So there's good news and bad news out there. But that's always the case, in the history of the world. There's always good news and bad news. And it's very important. I remember Sally Jo was telling me when she wakes up, sometimes she's feeling a little anxious. Well, we all feel a little anxious sometimes about things. But it's good to remember that there are more good things happening in the world than bad things in terms of just the general human interactions. There's a lot more people being polite, being honest, than people who are killing other people. I mean, those numbers are small in comparison to the general population. And this is nothing new. I mean, this has been going on all throughout recorded history. The weapons are more deadly now, so that's not good. And I think that's about all really I have to say about nature and human involvement in it. Because I really see us as being nature, and everything is connected. There's just no doubt about that. I mean, we're all connected now, because I can go over here and touch Sally Jo's knee. I mean, we can go anywhere we want, basically. We don't have the rocket ships yet to go out into outer space, but if we don't cause a complete collapse, we will, I think, at some point have rocket ships and explore space. So I'm going to posit 3 questions, but before I do that, does anybody have any thoughts or feelings or comments that they want to make at this time, just concerning the remarks that I've made? We'll hand you the mic if you do. Do you want to? Here, we'll pass this mic around. Yeah, okay.
I don't want it to end, so I'm going to talk. No, I'm reading a book right now, which I thought I would just share with everybody. It's called How to Change Your Mind. And the real topic of the book is the history of psychedelics. But there are some really interesting drill downs, scientific backstory, if you will. And one of the ones that I was just reading was about mushrooms and the existence of mushrooms in the forest, and how much of it is really invisible to humans, right? We see a little tiny bit pop up above the soil. But one of the things that really stuck with me was they've done studies by adding like radioactive isotopes to a tree and then watch it spread through the forest by way of the mushrooms. And then learning that trees can actually share immunity with each other by way of this network, right? And it just, as you were talking, it struck me that there's just so much that we scratch the surface on about how interconnected we are. And this wasn't even talking about how I'm then connected to that forest and things like that, but it's just the interconnectedness really struck me as I was reading it.
Very good. Yeah. Anyone else or no? I remembered one thing that I was going to say that I didn't say just based on hearing what you said. When I am in this building, I don't think of it as different as being when I'm out walking in the forest in terms of my connection to nature, because I have internalized this view in my worldview that wherever I'm at, I'm in nature, and nature is my mother. So I'm always encompassed by my mother. And this is very empowering. So everywhere I go, for the most part, because this has taken a long time to work on. This is not something I just thought one day and then it was right there. No, because I'm going to be 72 here pretty soon. So, but that is the worldview that I have and the feeling that comes along with it. So it is sanctuary wherever I go. And this is within the power of every human being to do. So no matter where you go, you're home. Wherever you go, you're in nature. Even if it looks ugly, it's still nature. It's still our mother. So to me, this was a very life-changing viewpoint to take on. There's been a couple of times where, and I recommend this to people sometimes, I just sat down and I just stripped down all my ideas. I just went to the barest thing. What do I believe, number one? And I looked at that. And then I said, well, why do I believe that? And then I would try to figure out, why do I believe it? And then sometimes I would say, or I'd come to the conclusion, I don't even know why I believe it. I just believe it. So I threw that out. I just literally threw it out. I only kept the things that made sense to me and that I could understand why I believe, because we have many unconscious beliefs that we carry from childhood. And once you do that tear down, you can find them. And the more you find them, you can look at them. And then once you look at them, you can decide whether they serve a purpose that's good or they don't serve a purpose that's good. And if they don't, then you can free yourself. But you must find them first. Okay, so enough talk. We're going to, I think we got one, two. Groups of 3 usually work better. So let's form groups of 3. Depending on your comfortability level, sit with somebody you don't know, just for the heck of it. And then I'm going to give you some questions, and we're going to do a brief sort of time it. And, everybody speak for, a couple minutes or something, whatever and you can always pass. You don't have to speak if you don't want to. But usually the people come here like to talk. So we can talk. And then at home, you can just think about this, because I've asked these questions because they're very deep questions. And so it requires some inner reflection. And so let's form up groups, and if I have to fill in, with one of the groups. So we'll just put our chairs, in little groups of 3. Yeah, and let's, I was going to say, let's pull one group out here so we're not else. Well, okay. Chris, do you want to be in a group or not? Okay, well, let's have a group here. Yeah. Or we can just do it like that. Yeah, that works. I'll just leave this chair here. Okay. Yes, I am going to join you. Yeah. So, okay. So one thing I realized, because we've been doing the year of sanctuary, is that I don't know that we've actually ever really talked about, well, what is sanctuary? I don't think we have. So this first question is, what does sanctuary mean to you in your life? Okay, so what does it mean? So let's talk about that a little bit. So let's wrap this up pretty quickly. Or if you're done, if everyone's spoken, let me know. Has everyone spoken? No. Oh, no. Okay. Well, you let us know. Yeah, okay. That was a clear no. people don't want to. We have 2 more questions after this, so we have to wrap it up here pretty soon. Okay, we're ready? Okay. Let's just stay in your groups, but just turn the chairs so we can see each other. And let's just, who's ever willing to share a little bit about, what your group came up with, or it doesn't have to be a joint thing. I mean, just if you have any reactions you'd like to share briefly, let's just, send the mic around. So do we have the other mic? There it is, there. So does anybody? Yeah. I knew I could count on you, Ron.
Sure. Well, I was just going to say, I think the common thing was the concept of sanctuary and what it is for us has evolved over time, right? From our childish thoughts of it to getting older.
Yeah, that's very true. Anyone else?
There are so many things. Sanctuary, there were so many insights in this group. I had to start writing them down. It was like, sanctuary is when I am with my most essential self. It was just like, that's, and there's the, sanctuary is not just a place, there's a time, and there's how, what am I bringing to it? Am I being the sanctuary? And then there was also the question of sanctuary as being a place or a time of protection, and then thinking of all the different layers of things that we would need protection from. It's just like from people living in war zones to hunger and homelessness to our own thoughts. So, yeah, just a lot of really interesting conversation.
Yeah, we had some of the same thoughts about the difference between the sanctuary as a place and sanctuary as a state of being, and also doing. I think John brought that up, especially about there's an element of doing in sanctuary. So yeah, for us, having 3 people was perfect because it kind of brought, when each of us talked, it broadened the concept, but it also was, we also discussed how it had evolved in our lives from, in some cases from childhood, in some cases not until later, but it's always changing. It seems like it's one of those concepts that the more we grow and learn, the more we have a more maybe complex, maybe simple, but a different idea of sanctuary.
Yeah, one thing that I spoke about in our group was sanctuaries evolve for me in terms of when I'm in the environment and I'm feeling like I can be myself in whatever capacity I want to be, then that's sanctuary. It helps me bring this personality that I have, because all of us are given a personality when we're born. And we see that. People have personalities. We're all individuals. We're all individual expressions that we're given. And we just receive that. And a lot of us are held back. We're afraid to be ourselves. So sanctuary, I think, is working best when, yes, we're safe, the physical aspect, but it also empowers us to not be afraid, to go ahead and be free and to be yourself. And it helps if that includes being respectful, kind, and loving. That's what we hope that we see more in people and expressing themselves. So, all right. Next question. How does nature provide you with sanctuary? How does nature do that? No, just one at a time. And we'll talk, because I like to talk right after to get the, because we forget things. All right. Okay, so if you can wrap it up soon, that would be good. Okay, I'm gonna call it. So, because we have one last question to do. So just briefly, any insights or things you want to share? And we'll pass the mic if anybody wants to share. You don't have to summarize, just anything that popped up that you found interesting or something about yourself.
I'll share about myself. When, I guess bottom line, it feels, when we talked about the sanctuary of nature, I grew up on the Oregon coast, so, and I was in nature a lot as a child, and so I feel like it's kind of in me, and that was my sanctuary. And still, when I am, I don't know, I don't even have the words, but when you have stirrings inside and you don't know what they are, then I find myself thinking of the beach and Neocani Mountain and the trees, and then like my being becomes that, and like everything is okay.
Oh.
Just the last thing I thought of, I was at Bumbershoot last night, and for the first time in the many years I've gone to Seattle Center, while I've seen squirrels there, I've seen birds many times, of course, I saw a bunny, that was running around near the Fisher Pavilion. Nighttime, it just struck me how some of the times while we think we're the ones in control of that situation, we're just living in their world and hopefully not impacting them too terribly. I just felt some joy of seeing that, and then reinforced today by two squirrels who looked at me as a familiar in a way. So I felt in the flow of things as opposed to in the opposition of things. So I was glad of that.
I would just share that one of the things that I hadn't really thought about that much was sometimes I'm just struck by the beauty of nature. And that beauty just infuses me with, I don't know, it just lifts me up, no matter how I'm feeling. So just seeing wildlife, or I particularly respond to wind blowing through leaves. That, it sounds like music to me. Sometimes I just stop and I just listen for a while. It's so amazing. So I find that heartwarming. Okay, so the last question. How can you, as nature's representative, provide sanctuary to the people in your life? Yes, how can you, as nature's representative, because you're nature, provide sanctuary to the people in your life? All right, so it's 11:30, so let's try to wrap it up here real quickly. Okay. We have time for just, we have a couple of thoughts or comments. We can share them. There's time for that.
I'm going back to before we started the small groups. Hopefully I can remember what I was going to say, what I wanted to say, but the timing wasn't quite right. When you were talking about what do I believe, and then going through the steps of that, what came up for me it was so much of, and this is my thing with science, I like science and I like hearing all of the information and everything, and then there comes a point at which my intuitive feeling nature starts saying, oh, I already knew that. Like the inner experience, the inner experience, it doesn't have words, but there are, it's, I guess, the kinesthetic intuition. And now I'm going to talk too long, and you're going to say just a history of Steve and me. It's like we're like a good yin and yang kind of. But in our guiding council meetings, I would talk and I would try to explain probably what I'm trying to explain now, and he'd go, "Gretchen, we get it." Because I would go on and on. But my point is, to bring it to a close, it is kind of a yin and a yang thing for me. I'm speaking now really from a vulnerable place, and this being the sanctuary, that as a woman, I feel like some of what we experience within our bodies and ourselves and the world gets discredited. As my stepbrother, who's a research scientist, said, we prove what your grandmother already knows but can't prove. And I often feel that in the world. So that's what I want to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting about science. Science only goes so far. It doesn't really, handle, well, what is love? Or how is it to be kind or respectful? I mean, it wasn't that long ago when there were scientists who thought, oh, well, we can operate on a dog. It doesn't feel pain. I mean, have you never owned a dog? Do you not see that it's a living creature? It has feelings. Because every species there's this term called Umwelt. It's a German word, Umwelt. And it means that they experience in the world in the way that's germane to their life and their cycle and the senses that they have. And just because they don't experience the world the way we do doesn't mean they're dumb. No, they're very smart because they're still alive. They're staying alive. And that's one of the criteria. You don't stay alive if you're dumb or if you can't be aware of the world. You have to be aware of the world. So everything that's alive is conscious. On some level, like if consciousness was a big scale, I would say this is down on the lower end, of consciousness, but it's still on the scale, You can't just say that these particles, the energy particles of the universe here are not useful. They're just as useful as anyone else. So science is good, but it's a tool. That's all. Yeah.
About Gretchen, really. She really embodies, no, seriously, and I mean it very sincerely, that one of the greatest gift one can give is to be sincere and genuine in listening. Whenever over these decades of ministry here, there's been a difficult person or a conflict, but particularly difficult person, especially a few Muslims who are very angry at us. I've always asked Gretchen to come and speak because when she deals with them, she really sincerely listens. I'm not listening because I'm listening, but I'm already formulating my answer as the person is talking. So I just want to end with that Rumi quote. What is real listening? He says, metaphorically, Rumi says, listening is metaphorically putting your head on the person's chest and sinking into the answer. And you embody that. I really appreciate that about you.
Okay, so we're saying goodbye to the live stream. Thank you for coming. Hope you enjoyed it. And let's do a closing circle. I want to do the blessing for the closing circle.